Hey Denchbags, what's going on? It's Lan and Remixes here, and welcome to my review of the new album from The Prodigy, The Day Is My Enemy. Now, The Prodigy is an English electronic rock band, and this is their first album since 2009's Invaders Must Die, and a lot of people have been centering a lot of hype around this album recently, as they've been claiming that they're going to kill EDM with this new record. I've got a few bones to pick with that, and we'll get into this a little more, but I'm going to try to make this album review as short as possible because I really don't have a lot to say about this album. I'd just like to interject first that if you're a big fan of The Prodigy, don't get offended at anything I'm going to say. This is all just opinion and speculation. There's no need to get upset about anything I'm going to say in this review, or you can let me know what you think about it, but this is just my opinion, so this is what I'm going to do in this review. I'm just going to kind of talk about the album as a whole because I really don't want to focus on each individual track because honestly, most of this album, the tracks all kind of sounded the same, and I don't want to mean saying that every track was the same track because that would just be silly, but a lot of it's just kind of reruns of what I've already heard from The Prodigy, and there wasn't much really interesting on this. The production was detailed and interesting at best, but I really don't think this album was stretching too far and didn't make me extremely excited. I wasn't necessarily bored with this album, even though I was at points, but I think that overall this record could have been a little more interesting and didn't really follow the hype that The Prodigy kind of centered it around. And about their whole going to kill EDM thing, I got really surprised when I found out that Flux Pavilion, one of the biggest EDM DJs or producers for that matter in the industry, featured on this album, which really doesn't make any sense at all to me. They have some other underground guests on this record, but overall I really didn't see how they were stretching that far and pulling and kind of being a little hypocritical when bringing on Flux Pavilion to this record, even though the track with him, Rhythm Bomb, which I think was probably a reference to Bass Cannon by Flux Pavilion, one of the biggest dubstep tracks of all time. I don't see how they really followed up to that statement when featuring someone like Flux Pavilion on the record. Like I said, most of the tracks kind of sound really similar. One of my least favorites is the track Ibiza. Most of this record, I get a little annoyed because it's constant riffs, and it sounds really good at first, but then it just kind of gets really repetitive, and there's these cool little vocals, and sometimes like a little high-pitched, and they change it up a little, but overall, the songs just sound so repetitive, and these songs could be a lot shorter while still retaining the same amount of music. There's not much change throughout this, and I'm not saying that house music, which is what I'm usually into, is any better, but that's exactly what it is. It's just repetitive and not necessarily annoying and not necessarily great, but not bad either, and I'm kind of rather neutral to this album. I don't know how else to explain it. There's a few interesting tracks like Rebel Radio. That one was one that I really liked. One of my other least favorites on the album was Destroy. That's one of my two least favorites next to Ibiza, and they come basically right next to each other. I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for that because a lot of people are saying Destroy is their favorite track on the record. Kind of builds up like it's going to be a future house track. It's really groovable, and then it just kind of disappoints and doesn't really live up to what it's building up to, and I want to enjoy it, but I just really can't. And even on tracks like Wild Frontier, I'm hearing a little bit of pendulum influence, which I like, but then it just ends up not pulling in anything really interesting to this style. And I take notes on my records. A lot of my notes are basically just saying, this isn't a bad track, but I don't love it. I like it, it's definitely good, but it's not great, and that's what I really want to look for in a record, and that's what I was really hoping I'd get with this record. In fact, I was kind of debating whether or not I should review this because I didn't really have anything extremely bad to say about it, but I don't have a lot good to say about it either, so that's why I kind of wanted to make this a very short review. There's an interlude track called Beyond the Deathray. I really like that one. That's what I feel like I would have liked the record a lot more if they would have had more of a sound like this throughout the whole album, and even though that would get a little bit repetitive, I think it would still be a little better than what they ended up with. The title track, The Day Is My Enemy, is also one of my favorites. I actually dig it more than Nasty, which was the lead single off the record. A lot of the MC vocals sound pretty cool on this. There's a track called Invisible Sun, which I really digged. Sounded a little bit more hip-hoppy, which I definitely liked hearing that toward the end of the record. I was like, oh, actually something interesting, and that's what I feel like they should have done. A little more genre blending, like Pendulum, for example, did with their last record, Immersion, which is why I loved it so much. They're so diverse, and I mix drum and bass with different other styles, which I feel like the Prodigy should have aimed for a little bit more with this album. And if you're going to get offended and think that I'm trying to flatten their sales or something, I'm not, because they already went #1 in the UK for albums, so there's no way I'm going to influence many people's decisions. This is strictly my opinion, and I just feel like I should get it out there. I want to do reviews for as many electronic-based albums as I can, so I'm trying to do that as much as possible. The final track on the album, Wall of Death, I thought a little bit more, wow, this could be a really nice live track, but just listening to it through headphones, I really can't enjoy this. Like, for example, let's use Big Room. With the last Martin Garrix EP, I got it on CD, and it's not extremely enjoyable because it's live tools that people are supposed to enjoy, and it's not meant to be on an album, which I feel like this was the kind of thing. It's not supposed to be a single, really, but it would be really awesome to hear live, but I didn't really enjoy it. So, overall, like I said, there's not much bad I have to say about this album, but there's not much good. It's very repetitive, and overall, I just really didn't like it. I didn't love it. I didn't hate it, though. So, I'm going to give this record a solid 5. I don't think I've ever done that before. Exactly neutral. I didn't, when I listened through it, I wasn't really bored, but at the same time, I wasn't truly captivated, so I figured 5 would be the best possible rating I could give this. Like I said, this is all my opinion. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the album. Once again, don't get too offended, and fire insults at me for my music taste. So that's happened a few times with the last Savant album that I did. I think I got a ton of dislikes on that. Probably half the reason was because I pronounced his name wrong. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this little review, and I'll see you guys later. Peace.